What's up, guys? Welcome back to the TFSA Tour. We're finally getting to the business end of things. This is where you should really consider putting your tax-free savings. The first portion, was just the banks, just to make sure we've gone over them and we've ticked them. But this is where I'm starting to make not even starting to make solid recommendations. I'm not recommending a thing to you. I'm just saying this is where rather you should be looking to put your tax-free savings accounts rather than with the banks. Is convenient, but this is where you should really be putting your money. And the first company we're going to be looking at is, I don't know if it's 1nvest or 1nvest, whatever you wanna call it, but basically on their side it says, hello, they're a specialist index fund manager. If this thing doesn't do that, specialist index fund manager with one of the widest index product range in South Africa, with unit trusts, ETFs, blah 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 blah. That's basically just saying that they are great. They say investing made easy. Yes. They keep going. What we offer, why us? Simple, transparent. Okay, cool. This is their site. I tried to do a bit of research on them, and if I'm not mistaken, it is a collaboration between what you would say is Standard Bank and Liberty, which is Stanlib, but I believe Stanlib also has their own product. So it's kind of like the spin-off of Stanlib is this 1nvest. So it's a bit tricky actually trying to put down their history or how they sort of came about. But actually something I found is that they are actually launched in October 2019, and this is going to be interesting when we get into some of the fun fact sheets, because here it says that they were launched October 2019, meaning that they're a relatively new company. But as I said, I think it's some changing over between them and Stanlib, but yeah, we'll get into it. Their approach, they say, we believe investing should be simple and accessible, which I agree, which is why we're giving investors like you the building blocks to build your investment portfolio and take control of your own future. Look, I actually shouldn't really be going over all of this because this is not a review of them. We're actually looking just solely at their products. But I was kind of just looking at the team, and I would say it's quite a nice diverse mix of people who are here. But what I will say is that this dude, this head of index portfolio management, this guy has got the easiest job in the world. And once we get to the fun fact sheets, you'll actually see why. But I'd say it's a nice mix of people that they have here. It's interesting how small this team is. If this is everyone, it's quite interesting how small they are compared to the number of funds that they have. I think that they've done a really good job, and they run a very lean staff. If this is everyone in the whole organization, but I highly doubt it. I think there probably are a lot more people. This is just who they feel is worth us seeing and knowing. But yeah, let's look over their products, because this is the most important part of this whole thing. And yeah, they've got index tracking, unit trusts, and ETFs. But to look at their tax-free savings, it says tax-free savings accounts are part of the government's drive. Okay, that's explaining what it is. A tax-free saving investment account is the perfect long-term investment solution. Not only do you not pay tax on interest, dividends, or capital gains, but the savings is compounded over time. It can substantially enhance your investment returns. Cool. They're just explaining what it is. They kind of show you the funds by category, but as soon as you go on over to their all funds range, you actually see of all of these things in this table, there is a TFIA. So that means that, is this valid for the tax-free investment? And as you'll see, almost everything in the local range is, even in the global range, almost everything is. Their blended range, and it's only in the commodity range where you're not allowed to use it for tax-free savings. So almost everything here is tax-free savable accounts. So when it comes to options, you're spoiled for choice, which I think is quite a good thing. This is where it gets very different from the banks. The banks were rigid with exact percentages, but here the world is your oyster, which I think is great. And I'm just going to highlight a few. And a nice thing here is that they do both ETFs and unit trusts, so you're not stuck on one specific kind. If you want to do one or the other, you definitely can. What I will say is stay away from the unit trusts, and as well when you see things like this blended range fund of funds, just know that your fees are going to be high. Your fees are going to be really high. You know, where I spoke about, you know, retirement savings and why, you know, your money kind of gets eroded is because, you know, with your retirement savings, it's a fund nested in a fund, nested in another fund, and each of these funds, you know, attract their own fees. And you know, they'll give you one fee in the beginning to be like, no, Tina, we just charge 1%. But you know, if there are 5, 6, 7 funds within there and each of them charge 1%, the 1% that you're being charged is the 1% based off of that net asset value, but each and every other net asset value in there also has its 1%. And maybe it's a video that I'll make and go over on another day, but unit trusts or fund of funds, play far from those things because you will get burnt. But yeah, basically for every, you know, company or, you know, investment company that we're going to go over now, I'm basically going to look at, because I'm not going to look at everything, I'm going to look at, you know, their top 40 products. I'm going to look at their MSCI or their world index. I'm going to look at their S&P 500. I'm going to look at their global bonds if they have global bonds. Some do, some don't, and it might be a strike against them if they don't. And then one other one that I think you know, is one that kind of stands out in the entire range, or what I would pick, you know, in that whole range based on the performance so far. And the first thing we've got is the top 40, the 1nvest top 40 ETF, where here I believe they are just doing investing in the top 40 companies by market cap, which is great. It's aggressive. 5 years. What I want to come on over here to actually is the total investment charge of 0.27%, which is decent. This is actually quite good. That is acceptable, you know, in my opinion. Top holdings: Anglo, Richmond, Naspers, First Strand, and so on and so forth. So the weighting of all of this probably isn't directly according to NAV, because you know, looking at your Anglo and Richmond having, you know, a higher holding than your Naspers and Prosus kind of tells me that there's maybe not some manipulation, but you know, they definitely are adjusting their holdings. They are raw, you know, top 40. They've got the top 40 companies, but you know, they are adjusting it as and how they want to. Over here, or rather, one of the things that, you know, I wanted to highlight from earlier was that their birth date, as we saw here, is October 2019, but you'll see this fund has existed since 18 October 2010. So I definitely think that this is something that was initially a standard product and they just switched it over to this guy. But anyway, let's look at returns. What they've done over the last year, they're slightly behind the benchmark. Benchmark was 10.89, they're 10.47, which is forgivable. 3 years I think is similar, it's very close. 5 years, they've tracked it quite closely as well. 7 years, done pretty well, and 10 years, they've done quite well. So they've done really well to actually track their index. You know, and here they're showing you the positive highest, lows. You guys can go over this, and even the, you know, dividends that they've given out, they've actually done quite well. Yeah, I don't really want to go over what they say and what they do, but for top 40 products, I actually think it's quite good. It's decent. Wouldn't be what I would invest in, but definitely a solid top 40 product that they have here. Next, we're going to look at the MSCI World, and this is, you know, where I said that other guy, I think it's this Ryan dude who's got the most easiest job, because when you read here, what does the fund invest in? The feeder fund invests in the iShares Core MSCI World ETF. That's all they do. You give them their money, they take your money, they convert it to whatever currency they need to convert to in order to invest into this ETF. So zero heavy lifting that these guys are doing here, and you know, they kind of charge you for it every month. The total investment charge is 0.40%, which is again decent. It's a bit more than what we had before, but you know, thinking about the fact that they need to convert you know, your monies to whatever currency they are investing with iShares with, which I assume is dollars, that's kind of what makes up, you know, that, and whatever their profit is there as well. If you continue to scroll down, you will see, yeah, basically they show you that the holdings is just that one simple thing and a little bit of cash. That's probably what they're going to be converting soon. And also as well, then they show you what the top holdings are: Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Tesla, Alphabet, Nvidia, Meta, United Health, and J&J. It is very United States, you know, centric, or where they've pointed it more to. Other countries, you know, come in at a decent amount to Japan, UK, Canada, France, and so on and so forth. But definitely based off of this top 10 and the allocation, it's America focused, but it is at least getting a bit of the rest of the world. So it's not like if the S&P is doing bad and the rest of the world is doing good, you would completely be down and out. It is 70%, so it is going to have a big effect on you, but at least you've got a bit of coverage and you can call it world. It's one of those world tours where it doesn't really cover Africa, but we still call it world. But yeah, that's another thing for another day. Launch date 14th of March in 2018. Okay, cool, it's fine. How they've been doing versus the benchmark. Yeah, it's down on the benchmark over the last year. It's slightly up over 2 years, 3 years, slightly down, 4 years, slightly down, and launch, it is slightly up. What interests me though is that there is a dollar benchmark, and I think as well that's another thing to kind of consider when it comes to these kind of things, is that sometimes your gains and your losses have to do with the currency conversion, because I think that is why versus the benchmark it's down here. But yeah, I don't well and truly understand that, but I think what it's basically saying is that where we're kind of gaining over the last year is mainly on currency. Why we're still up is because of currency, but actually that's where the benchmark is right now, which is not great. But now when you tend to look at it over a longer period of time, 2 years, the dollar benchmark is at 15 versus the 9, which is not great. But then 3 years, I think the currency in 3 years has probably been a bit better for us, meaning the rand has kind of lost its value over this time. But then when you take it on over to 4 years and since launch, I definitely think that what I'm saying is the case, that the rand has definitely gotten weaker, and as a result of that, it kind of boosts what this amount is, which is good for you as an investor, but kind of means that your buying power is not as great. So there's that to consider as well. And then there's everything else that they normally go over, and not much to go over here. That's this guy's job, is to kind of write up all of these things here, because really they're just posting money somewhere else. And it's a similar thing that they do here for the S&P 500 Index Feeder, is they put it into the iShares Core S&P 500 ETF. I'd do the exact same thing. It's aggressive, 5 years. The fee 0.27, so it's slightly less than the MSCI World, which I think is great. This is definitely a good contender for where you should be putting your money. Everything is there, and sector wise, the information technology or tech is quite high, healthcare, consumer discretionary, financials, basic S&P 500 things. Apple always at the top, Amazon, Microsoft, Tesla, Google, Nvidia, Berkshire, Facebook, and United Health Group. This was started in 2018, so as you know that it is quite old. Class, how it's doing versus benchmark, slightly below. Over 1 year it is slightly below, again over 2 years, similarly for 3 years, similarly for 4 years, but it's not too far off of the benchmark, which is to be expected when you consider costs and the like. I'm not really going to go over the dollar and the currency things there. I think we've done that already, but basically what you're getting from this is that it's tracking its benchmark quite closely. Next, we're going to be looking at the Global Government Bond Index Feeder ETF. And this one, similarly, so invest into the iShares Global Government Bond ETF. Again, not a lot of work being done here. Just take your money, give it to iShares, which is what I would do as well. Actually, I think this is quite a smart way to do it. And, how maybe I would do it, if I was more risk averse, I would maybe have a split between something like the MSCI World, S&P 500 and this, kind of give each a third and kind of put it like that, or do something different where maybe you put some in property, 1/3 in property, 1/3 in MSCI World or S&P 500, and another third into this, just so you have a bit of diversification and that your money's safe. Because keep in mind, with your tax-free savings, you're in this for the long haul. It's not a get rich quick scheme. You're going to be here for quite a bit of time, so it might be worth your while actually doing that. And I believe at some point this actually was the best performing government bond ETF in South Africa, and it's definitely the one that I would go with. Specifically because they give it to the iShares Global, but you can find other people do that. But yeah, we'll see it as we go. And this one is actually conservative. They say you should hold it for about 3 years. The expense is 0.4, so it actually is a bit on the higher side compared to the two or the other products we've looked at so far. Let's keep going to see, and basically what you'll see here, they've got quite a bit of US government bonds. Almost everything here I think is a US government bond. There is a bit of France in there, but you'll see US, Japan, France, Italy, Germany, stable countries where we know the government will pay us back, unlike other gens who are busy pumping money into SAA and the like, yet we still have load shedding. Versus benchmark, I think they are tracking quite closely, for the first year, third year quite closely, and over 4 years it is tracking quite closely. Returns are not as great as what we've seen on the other side, but that's just the nature of bonds, and I'm pretty sure in the end, when all of this money needs to be returned, it would actually do quite well. So there's that as well. And yeah, not much else to really go over here. And then the one kind of jazzy optional option that I think we should consider or look at if we were to go with these guys for our tax-free savings would be the S&P 500 Info Tech Index Feeder ETF, which again goes to the iShares S&P 500 Information Technology Sector ETF. That's definitely where I would throw and put my money into. It's quite aggressive, 5 years, total investment charge 0.35, so not as expensive as some of the other guys, but still quite good. Must notice that we're tracking well under 8%, which is a fraction what you get from unit trusts, and basically this is where they've put all your money, and it's just in one sector in America. That's why Apple's almost 25% of this. Microsoft, Nvidia, Visa, MasterCard, you know what it is. It's same old things that we're used to. Let's check how they're doing versus the benchmark. It's quite a bit of a way off over the last year, but taking it over to 2 years is a bit closer to its benchmark. Similar with 3 years, also 4 years not so great, but since launch it's kind of done quite well. This actually started in 2018, and yeah, I would say this is tracking its index quite well. And if you look at the returns, it's double digits almost every year, since inception, or across all of these different time periods that we're comparing. So I would say it is done pretty well, and yeah, it would probably be kind of the wild card one that I would choose. I would maybe if I wanted to be not frisky, but sort of interesting with how I do, I would put up a quarter of my money here, a quarter of my money into the bonds, a quarter into the MSCI World, and then now I wouldn't put a quarter into ETF, but maybe put it into property or something. Yeah, so a quarter the info feeder tech, quarter government bonds, quarter MSCI World, and then quarter into like a property ETF. I think that would be a nice thing to do, and just know that you've got the next 20 years to invest in those things, and watch how your money will grow if you continue to do that. But basically what I'm getting at, 1nvest I think is quite a good product, or company rather. It's a decent place for you to put your tax-free savings, and that's definitely what I would consider using for my tax-free savings account if I were you. But there are other options who are probably going to be quite similar to this, so stick around for that as we go through the rest of this tour. Peace.